finished reading The Waves by Virginia Woolf, and this is my review of it. I really thought this book was really awesome. The Waves is a novel that was published in 1931. It's in an experimental form where all of the book is basically soliloquies by 6 different characters. So soliloquy is where a character is talking aloud, but just like saying thoughts or basically their thoughts, and the other characters don't hear it, so it's like a stage whisper from inside the mind. I would say that the strong points of this book were the writing, the description, the characterization of the characters, and the depth that they had, as well as just the general form of the story. So it starts off with 6 friends, Bernard, Rhoda, Ginny, Susan, Lewis, and Neville, growing up together in, I think, England. I think this was probably around 1931 set. And it follows these 6 characters as they start to find their identity, as they start to mature from adolescence to adulthood, and even slightly past adulthood into almost old agehood. And it's a really cool style that Virginia Woolf uses in that she separates each stage of their life with a descriptive passage about a coastal scene that is sort of tied into the sun rising, or it goes through the course of a day, so at the end you have a sunset. And I think that was just some interesting symbolism there. And basically what happens is that as they grow, they start to develop as individuals as well as characters, and you sort of see the different ways that their minds go as they start to figure out who they are when they're alone and who they are when they're with their friends or when they're with their acquaintances. I really liked that even though it was entirely dialogue, that you could still get a really good sense of movement and a flow through time with the way it was written. So different situations arise, and they're faced with how to react to these situations. There's sort of like people getting married and people coming together after many years, and so it's a very interesting way to see how they change in their reactions. So the strong point, as I said, was really the characters, because it was basically told all the way through how they were thinking. You really got to know the characters and you got to sympathize with them. And each of the characters is really distinct from the others. They all have very different personalities. You have Bernard, Lewis, and Neville, who are all sort of wannabe writers or wannabe artists, but they're all very different types of wannabe writers. Bernard is like the guy who will write things in his pocketbook to remember later. Lewis is the one that's the most successful, but he's also the one who feels like he has the most to prove because he's from Australia, and so he has this accent that makes him stick out, and he just has to deal with that as he's going through his life. And Neville is kind of this guy who develops an infatuation towards another person and has sort of built his life around observing that person. And it's an interesting character study. And then girls are also really different. You have Rhoda, who's this dreamlike, sprite, ethereal, ephemeral, very floaty, she cares more about things that are not of the world than what's currently around her. And you have like the opposite, Susan, who's super, she's into like farming and the simplicity of life and kind of being at one with the earth in a way. Not like that, but sort of like that. And you have Ginny, who's very Irene Adler, very physical, very sensual, very aware of who she is and aware of how to use that to get her way in life. So those are the characters, and I really enjoyed being able to hear more of their thoughts. I enjoyed the writing style. It was very melodic, very fluid, kind of poetic in ways, because there are definitely lines in this book that were super amazing, and you just want to treasure them. I highlighted so many different things I just want to remember forever. I also, at first I thought the descriptions of like the day and the description of the coastal scene was sort of, what? I don't get it. But as soon as I realized that it was really a symbolic thing where you're talking about these people growing up as the days growing old, I started to like it more. The one thing that I would say that gave me some difficulty was remembering who was talking. Each soliloquy starts off with something like, something Bernard said, and then the rest of whatever Bernard says comes after, and each thing is just set apart by that one dialogue tag. So it's really important to pay attention to that, otherwise you might get lost. But even so, you can sort of guess when it switches characters because they talk about different things and they notice different things. Overall, this book was amazing and is probably going to be one of my favorites from now on. I will have to find more Virginia Woolf's writing to see if her other books that are not so experimental are as good as this one. And I would highly recommend it to anyone who wants to sort of follow very deep characters as they develop. If you're really into action or thriller or mystery, this might not be the book for you, but if you're really into books that are sort of thoughtful and thought-provoking in terms of talking about identity and who you are or who people are when they're around other people, this is a good read for that. So I'll be back soon with a review of The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay once I finish reading that. I'm about halfway through now. And I might start uploading videos more often because it's still break for me and I don't have that much to do. See ya!